Now let's get some more analysis on this from Muhannad Ayyash. He's an associate professor at Mount Royal University, joining us live from Calgary, Canada. Professor, good to have you on the program. How significant is this step from the Israelis to partially reopen the Rafah border crossing?
A pleasure to be with you again. Thank you for having me. Let's put this into context. Israel was supposed to do this in phase 1. So now we are allegedly into phase 2. And they're going to now, fulfill one of their obligations from phase 1, but they're not even going to fulfill it completely. They're going to do it partially. So it tells you how much of a symbolic really move this is. There's, as your reporter rightly, and correctly reported there, no cargo, no aid, no reconstruction. Approximately that is the number we're hearing of maybe 200 people both entering, and that's both entering and exiting. That's combined numbers, 200 people a day. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who are outside of Gaza right now that should have the right to re-enter it. And thousands of Palestinians who have desperate medical needs to leave Gaza right now and attend to their medical needs, who will not be able to exit. Who knows when they'll be able to exit. We're seeing from Palestinians on the ground that they are receiving very little information on how this process is going to unfold. When are they going to be able to go and leave Gaza to go get the medical treatment they desperately need? Some of these medical treatments, we're talking about life and death situation. They have no clarity on whether or not they'll get to see their loved ones that they haven't seen in over 2 years for some, and longer than that for others. For those whose loved ones have left Gaza prior to October of 2023, it doesn't look like Israel will be allowing them to return at all. So those people will still have to wait to see their loved ones again. So this is a very partial reopening that came as a result of a lot of pressure on them to even give the symbolic move. But keep in mind that this was something they were supposed to do in phase 1, and they're now only doing it partially.
Professor, how much of this is about Israel continuing to sort of wield its power over the fate of the Palestinians?
And this is absolutely what this is about. And Israel is exerting absolute control over the entire process. And they've made that very clear, that it doesn't matter if there's EU officials or Palestinian Authority officials or Egyptian officials that are going to be interacting with the Palestinians that are crossing the border, the Rafah crossing, that Israel will be behind a screen somewhere, either okaying the movement of particular individuals or rejecting it, that they will have the final say on anyone who gets to leave or enter. So it's a complicated security infrastructure that is being implemented here with, like I said, all of these players involved, or seemingly at least that all of these players will be involved. Because there's still some questions about, what exactly do these EU officials in the Palestinian Authority have. But regardless, even if we have all of these different officials, ultimately it's the Israelis, whether they're physically present or observing everything, minute by minute, second by second from a screen somewhere, they will ultimately have the final say about who gets in and who gets out. And they're going to limit the number of people. And like I said, it's not a reopening in the sense of, goods and services will not be allowed to move through the process.
Just a partial reopening. But in terms of the concept of violence, I mean, Israel going from armed violence during the war to now limiting the movements of Palestinians, restricting access to aid, not allowing the Palestinian society sort of move towards their desired statehood. Are these just different forms of Israeli violence?
Oh, absolutely. And in scholarly literature, we call that structural violence. And it's actually sometimes a more deadly form of violence than armed violence because it's less visible. It happens on a daily basis. It reduces lifespans. It affects the health of an entire population, their well-being, their ability to make a living for themselves, to live a dignified life, and so on. And so Israel has been unleashing these structural violences on the Palestinians for for decades and decades, and they're certainly at an intensified sort of rate at the moment following the so-called ceasefire. Now, don't make no mistake, Israel has not stopped armed violence. They just killed Palestinians today in Gaza. Almost 500 people, I think, have been reportedly killed since the ceasefire was signed. So there's still armed violence, there's still bombing, but these structural forms of violence are now being intensified by Israel to continue to make the Gaza Strip uninhabitable for the Palestinians, and it is causing immense suffering and desperation for the Palestinians in Gaza. And it doesn't look like it's going to end anytime soon. Certainly not by this partial reopening.
Professor Ayyash, very interesting to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Always my pleasure. Thank you.